For centuries, human civilizations, old and new, around the world have built and created new cities, buildings, monuments, tombs, temples, churches, mosques, and other monumental structures that continue to amaze millions of people around the world. Narrowing down the world's numerous wonders to only 7 is definitely a difficult endeavor. More so, to be enlisted to an international list of the most impressive and significant structures in history is but an honor and a great tribute to the ancestors who built them. It has been such a long time for the list of the 7 wonders of the world to have received its update. Today, we have the new 7 wonders of the world, namely the Great Wall of China, Petra in Jordan, Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro, as well as Machu Picchu in Peru, Chichén Itzá in Mexico, the Colosseum in Rome, and the Taj Mahal in India. The Great Pyramids of Giza also received a place of honor as an honorary candidate because of its undeniable significance and for being the long and last-standing structure among the first list of the wonders. Behind their grandeur and their prestigious title, mysteries remain about these enigmatic structures. In this video, we will try to unveil some of the secrets of these structures, which for sure will keep us even more amazed by these wonders. Let us first wander the wilderness as we discover the secret of a wonder of the world that was abandoned and hidden for centuries, the Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu is a historic site of the Inca Empire, the largest empire that America ever had, situated 2,400 meters above sea level in the Andes Mountains of Peru. This mysterious city with a stunning natural landscape was once home to 300 to 1,000 residents. The city was said to have been built in the early 15th century. Much of its ruins reveal the architectural skills of the Inca civilization, a rather exquisite identity of a structural masterpiece. The ruins of the city, consisting of 200 buildings, were made entirely out of finely carved granite stones fitted together. The precision of the installation of these granite stones is so amazing that not even a piece of paper can be inserted between them. This precision made the buildings more resistant to earthquake. The stone walls would only move slightly and resettle without collapsing during and after an earthquake. With Peru's high seismic activity, it is amazing to see that most of the structures at Machu Picchu are still standing today. This may be attributed to their building method. The mystery lies in the reason this city was situated in a remote location. Many researchers believe that the city was built as a royal estate for the Inca emperor and a luxury getaway for the elite. Still, many believe that this could be the perfect hideout to protect the emperor in case of a foreign invasion. Others believe this could have been a religious center to honor the landscape, since the mountains around it were considered sacred by the Incas. This is on account that Machu Picchu has multiple temples, including the impressive Temple of the Sun, which was built with great precision and only the best materials. While no one has unearthed yet the true reason for building Machu Picchu, much has been known, however, that this city did not remain inhabited for very long. What could have happened there? Reviewing the history, it can be traced that by 1528, the Spanish conquest of the Inca Empire began. Fearing looting and destruction, the residents of Machu Picchu abandoned the city less than a century after it was built. On a very tactical note, Inca Empire, to protect the city, burned down the surrounding forest so that no more paths could be found leading up to the mountain. Their plan worked out since the Spanish invaders never found the city. After the Spanish victory in 1572, many of the other cities were destroyed, including Vilcabamba, which was the last Inca city to fall to the Spanish. Since there was no written record of Machu Picchu and no visible way to access it, it remained unseen until an American explorer and historian, Hiram Bingham, led a small expedition in hope of discovering the lost city of Vilcabamba. It was in their expedition when a local farmer told them about the extensive ruins high in the mountain. After reaching the site, Bingham concluded that this was the lost city they were looking for. The ruins then became known as Machu Picchu. Today, more than 100 years after its discovery, Machu Picchu is one of the most visited and special places in the world. Next, we have the equally impressive wonder of the world, the Great Wall of China. It is a common fact that China was home to one of the earliest civilizations in human history, as they are credited with many early inventions. They majestically laid the foundations of the longest man-made structure ever built, the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China is 21,000 kilometers long and passes through more than 400 towns across northern and central China. To break the common misconceptions about this Great Wall, it is not a single continuous structure, but a series of fortifications and bulwarks, whose origin can be traced back to the time between the 8th and the 5th centuries BC. During those times, China was divided into several smaller states that were fighting to expand their territory. The threats of wars and invasion made the rulers to start building high walls to keep the outsiders from invading their state. By the 3rd century BC, the warring states were unified under the Qin dynasty, and their emperor extended the wall while also connecting some of the existing sections. However, the most famous and strongest parts of the wall were during the Ming dynasty to protect them against the Mongol tribes. The materials used in the construction of this great wall vary depending on the kind of terrain the wall passed through and the materials available in the surrounding areas. In many places, rammed soil and wood were used. However, marble, bricks, and a secret ingredient were used to build the strongest sections of the wall. This secret ingredient was believed to have preserved the wall for centuries, and this is none other than the unusual mortar that contains sticky rice. During the Ming era, it was believed to be as strong and waterproof as cement and could seal the bricks so tightly that weeds will not be able to grow between them. To date, much of the Ming era sections are still standing strong, surviving drastic weather events and earthquakes. While we are amazed by the scenic view of the wall and by the knowledge of the materials where it was built, the construction process is not an easy endeavor. Huge stones and massive bricks had to be transported by the laborers to mountaintops through difficult terrains using their bare hands. They even have to travel several kilometers, which resulted in the laborers' death from hunger and exhaustion. The Great Wall of China is proof of the magnificent skill and hard work of the millions of ancient laborers, yet their works are considered worth it, since many parts of the wall stood the test of time and continue to attract over 10 million visitors every year. The third and the last wonder of the world to be covered in this video will traverse us back to more than 5,000 years ago, when ancient Egypt flourished along the Nile River. It is no wonder that humankind of today's generation still admires that ancient Egyptian culture and their knowledge of mathematics, language, medicine, and architecture. One most wonderful of their greatest achievements is the Great Pyramid of Giza, which still stands today and continues to fascinate people all over the world. This enormous structure was built in about 27 years. Originally, it was 146.5 meters tall and consisted of 2.3 million blocks with an average weight similar to that of an SUV. The Great Pyramid was originally covered in smooth white limestone, whose shiny encasing concealed the pyramid's core and made it dazzle in the desert sun. The tip of the pyramid was covered with gold-plated capstone, giving it an exquisite look. Over time, the shiny casing stones loosened up and were removed to build other monuments, like the Cairo Citadel and the mosque all across the capital. That is why the Great Pyramid of Giza is standing 8 meters smaller at 138.5 meters today. The mystery lies in how the Egyptians built it. Despite the lack of modern tools, it is a question of how they managed to quarry, transport, and position those massive stones. Well, it is believed that most of the blocks were quarried near the pyramid in what is known as the central field. It is even believed that they used wooden sleds to move the blocks through the sand, but it was very difficult to move when they were dragged through the hot sand, so they had to wet the sand first. This reduced friction and made the sand harder, making it easier to move the heavy blocks to the construction site. However, the white limestones for the casing of the pyramid had to be transported by boat from Tura, which is around 10 kilometers to the south. To impress us even more, the researchers found out that about 8,000 tons of granite stones came from Aswan, which is located about 900 kilometers south of the Nile. Every single block of these granite stones reached a weight of up to 80 tons, approximately the weight of 12 African male elephants. These granite stones were used for the king's chamber. Given the weight of these stones, the next challenge was to install these stones perfectly as the construction progressed to greater heights. Over the centuries, scientists have come up with many different theories, most of which revolve around the use of ramps. Without cranes and other modern building tools, using ramps is thought to be the only possible way of transporting the massive stone blocks toward the top of the pyramid. The first theory is that they used a single straight ramp on one side of the pyramid. The inclination of such a ramp must be at a maximum of around 8%. However, that leads to the fact that the ramp would extend to around 1.8 kilometers. Building such a ramp would have been a massive project, which might even be a bigger challenge than the pyramid itself. The second and more efficient way would be a ramp that went around the outside of the pyramid towards the top. The problem with such a ramp is that the corners would not be complete until the end of the construction. This makes it very difficult to carefully measure the angles at the corners and to ensure that the corners are straight and meet perfectly at the tip. It was until French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin presented another theory after 7 years of researching and creating 3D models. He proposed that an external ramp would only be practical to construct 1/3 of the pyramid starting from its base. For the remainder of the structure, they could have used internal ramps that go up towards the top in a corkscrew shape. This way, the ramp for the first third would be smaller and easier to align the corners. There is even evidence that supports this idea when the Great Pyramid of Giza was scanned using microgravimetry, which measures the density of objects. In one of their pictures taken, a lower density inside the structure was seen spiraling around the pyramid. These areas with lower densities could indicate tunnels that were used to build the pyramid. Aside from the mystery of how it was built, one intriguing question would be about who built it. According to a popular myth, the Great Pyramid was built by slaves. However, multiple studies have shown that this is most likely not true. Archaeologists have located the remains of villages exclusively built for the thousands of workers who probably came from faraway settlements along the Nile River. The slave theory was further debunked in 2010 when Egypt displayed newly discovered tombs that held a dozen of skeletons of pyramid builders. The skeletons were perfectly preserved and were buried along with jars that once contained beer and bread meant for the workers' afterlife. Egyptians were believed to have followed the same rituals for their kings and elites. Thus, these pyramid builders are not slaves, but those who commanded a lot of respect. While these theories have not been fully examined and accepted, one thing remains as true. The ancient Egypt had the best early resources and knowledge to construct this majestic pyramid in just 27 years. This is but to show that they were one of the first to have such an advanced civilization over the centuries. Do you want to unveil more secrets of the 7 wonders? Subscribe to High Technology channel to learn more about this. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.